But something else also was happening when I was with them. My husband started to pull away. Now, he knew I was coming back to where we lived. He knew I was going to be back in town, that I was going to have my own apartment, and that we were getting ready to continue to work on our reconciliation, but in a different way, given I was returning back to where we lived and worked. And he started doing something very different. He stopped checking in. He stopped texting and calling. He became distant. He canceled our meetings together. And when we did connect, he was very short and dry. And because I've been educating myself about this abuse that I'm experiencing, I realized this was something that was within the narcissistic cycle of abuse. This was the tension building time. This was his time to create distance and space and perhaps cause me to start to worry about the status of things and for me to question why he was pushing me away. And because I knew that, I didn't question. I just observed. I talked about it with my cousin and her husband. And I shared it with my therapist. And I focused on my other stuff. I focused on my plan. I focused on devising that plan of what I was going to do with the time I had back at home. I knew that at some point I was going to have to make a decision on whether or not I was going to remain in this situation, because it was clear to me that this was not very sustainable. I needed consistency. And the only consistency I had with my husband was that he was inconsistent. So I never spoke to my husband about the why he was pulling away, why he was not checking in as much, why he was apparently abandoning his efforts in repairing the relationship. Although we were actively talking to a therapist, a couples therapist, to start the reconciliation process, outside of those calls to plan, outside of those emails, he did nothing to nurture the relationship. When he called me, it was about the business. He didn't ask me if I needed anything for my new place. He didn't seem concerned about my finances. What he was very concerned about was the fact that he had to co-sign for my apartment because I didn't make enough money to qualify for the apartment. I think I may have mentioned I don't make market rate for the work I do. And it's a form of financial control, but my husband does not pay me market rate. It's way below. It's actually less than I've made when I worked for nonprofits in the region. And I play a pretty material role in our business and our day-to-day. But I don't make nearly as much as I should just as a professional, but also as someone who is in a private sector business in our industry. So I didn't qualify on my own for an apartment. So had asked if he would co-sign and sign the lease with me. And I'm glad I did that. But his one caveat was that he didn't want to be tied up for a long time. So we signed a lease that was only 6 months old. 6 months long. I'm sorry. And so what I did while I was with my family was I started to think about what that plan would be for me in those 6 months, being that I figured I would probably have to break up with him and figure out where to go next, because I didn't have a whole year to kind of get my bearings. I also didn't have any money for furniture and a whole apartment suite. I had to figure that out as well. So that was creating a bit of stress for me on my limited budget. I'd spent a lot of money shipping my items from where I was for that year to our city. And I used a lot of my money for my deposit and my first month's rent, which was all on me, of course. My husband never asked me if I needed any assistance, support, just getting set up. And of course, I never asked. He was very frustrated with the place I had chosen to live. He thought I should have lived in a more modest home, even though where he was living and how he was living was not modest at all. It was as if he wanted me to not be in a place that was comfortable or relaxing. Like he wanted me to be in like a shared space with like co-eds living just not the way that I should be living at this stage in my life. So I think there were a lot of things that were going on during that month where he was pulling away emotionally, but also claiming to want to work on the relationship. I think part of it was that I had exposed the fact that he hadn't really broken off his outside relationship that I had known about, but had tried to set a boundary and say if we're going to be in a polyamorous relationship that all parties involved would have to at least meet each other once, talk to each other to make sure that we were on the same page and that there was nothing nefarious going on. And when I set that boundary, my husband had lied and just said he had broken it off and that things had ended. And of course I verified that and to his chagrin, spoke to his other relationship and learned that he had been lying to her and me, and spoke to him about that. And this was prior to staying with my family. And in return, he was very nasty towards me. He withdrew. He was short, irritable, and he behaved as if I had done something wrong to him and not as if he had actually been lying to me, disloyal and just completely wrong. He treated me like I had done something wrong. And I didn't respond to it because I kind of expected that from him. He never apologized to me about doing that. So this was part of the withdrawal and the punishment that I was receiving. He knew that checking in was important to me. He knew that I wanted to have that connection with him, which is pretty normal in any relationship. When you're in a relationship, a marriage, a close personal relationship, you typically check in on the person. You typically, especially if you're in a marriage, you may call them every day. You may say hello, let them know you're thinking about them, text them. He wasn't doing that. And that was kind of a passive-aggressive way of pulling away and showing me what would happen if I set a boundary that exposed his behavior. And so I didn't feed into it. I just prepared myself for what I feel like is the inevitable, which is my leaving of this relationship when I am able to, which unfortunately I'm not able to at this stage. So I have been strategically planning my escape, my exit, and that requires a lot of financial planning, that requires a place to stay, it requires a job or some other way of earning revenue separate from him. So that month was pretty intense, and I'm really glad that I spent that time. I'm glad I took time away from this to kind of feel my feelings and to be in a space of being present in the moment and enjoying the company I was around, enjoying being loved, feeling loved, laughing. This was something I hadn't done in a long, long time. I was laughing, watching funny videos with animals and babies and things that I like, things that make me smile. My baseline has always been contentment, optimism. And I hadn't had that in so long. And it was so nice to feel alive again, to feel loved, to feel like there was something better that was possible in life. I'm not saying that I felt optimism about finding a new relationship or finding love. I don't think I'm there. I don't think I can really focus on that. But it was nice to feel like I could be happy. I could feel happy again. I could feel not sad. And that was new to me, and I relished that. It was so remarkable, the feeling of not feeling sad, not feeling hopeless. It's so hard to explain that, but it was something that I noticed, and I really paid attention to it, and I wanted to feel that way again, consistently. And I'm so glad I had that time, because I've been back for some time now, and it has been a challenge for me. It has been both empowering, but also the abuse that I have experienced since I've been back has been very different. And I'm actually quite grateful I have my own space. I have a physical boundary. I have things to keep me busy. I have the ability to meet people. I have the ability to be comfortable and not rely on my abuser for that. And I mean, I do. He does pay my salary, but to actually have distance and a place to be where I can breathe and not have a knot in my stomach or not be anxious in his company, which was something I realized was happening quite often. So yeah, this was, my check-in with you all. I am feeling much better. I am still going through a lot, but it was so nice to be able to be around true love and to reconnect with my happiness. I'm still a long way from feeling happy. I manage my feelings on a day-to-day. But I can say that